everyone. This is Stephanie Glickman, the Clinical Director at the Family Centered Treatment Foundation. And this is a quick little explainer video about one of our new tools that we're very excited to launch called the FCT Family Workbook. This is an Excel document where we are putting together the FAD, the Family Assessment Device, and the CPM, the Care Process Model, that pediatric trauma screener we're using, into one workbook where each family would have their own workbook, and it's going to do all of the behind the scenes calculations for you to make things so much more easy and efficient as you're going through the assessments with the families. So as you know, we're using both of these tools because blending in-depth look on how the family is functioning along with any trauma symptomology is so critical to be able to have a good comprehensive picture of what's going on with the person that we're serving and the family as a whole. You'll be able to access the family workbook through the provider portal at the FCT website. So here's an image of what you'll look for on the provider portal. Once you open it, make sure you enable editing. That's going to be able to let you type into the fields. And so as soon as you enable editing, it will then allow you to type in the identified client or the person's served name along with their ID number. Then you'll click Start New Family Workbook, and it will open up the tool. So first, you'll see here over on the left side of the screen that there'll be three options. There's the FAD assessment, there's the CPM screening tool for the 6 to 10-year-olds, and then there's also the screening tool for the 11 and older. Once you click one of those, it's going to prompt you right away to save the document, which is a good thing. It's going to default by the client's name and their ID number, but if you want to change that, you can. So just make sure that you change it to something that makes sense for you, and then you can store it anywhere in your files. And again, it's just one workbook per family, so you'll have a few depending on how many families you have. If you start with the FAD, it's going to look like this. You want to make sure that you fill out all of the fields in the top of the screen. For the administration type, it's basically if it's the initial one, if it's one being done mid-treatment, and we're just terming it intermediate, so that way if there's more than one middle, that we still have a way to capture that. And then there's also the final. Make sure all the other fields are filled out. You'll go through all 60 questions with the person that you're doing it with. And after a question is answered, it will turn green to make sure that you don't skip any. Just in case one gets skipped, it'll still prompt you at the very end to go back and fill out the field that's missing. Once you've completed, there's the options at the bottom. Click submit if it's good to go. If for some reason it didn't work out or you were doing it as a test run, you can click delete and start over. Now it will prompt you to, this alert will come up. Please be sure to select the FAD assessment completion date and the name of the family member who completed it. So just be aware that this is built in to the tool as a reminder, because we need to have the scores loaded in order for the averaging to start working. So you'll see this prompt, and then at the top of the screen is where you'll select, it's just going to be from a drop-down menu, the date of the FAD that you're looking for, along with the family member's name, and both of those will auto-populate. At the bottom, after those fields are filled in, you can go to the bottom. You'll notice that the numbers all pop up. This is just kind of where some of the calculations are taking place. But if you're into knowing how things are weighted and how some of the scores and which questions are asking for which domain, you can look at that. But as long as you see the fields click to having the numerical values entered, then you can click save at the bottom. That will unlock a new tab called the FAD Tracking and Averaging tab. Click there. Then this screen opens up. You click on these 3 spots, and obviously the more family members that you have and the more fields that they're putting in, you will unlock all of those. But you enter in the name, you select the role, and you select the date that it was completed. If by chance you select a wrong date, it's just not going to have values. So it's another way of just ensuring that we have accurate information and that we're not mixing up people's scores or that the wrong FAD is going to the wrong family member. It's just another way to create more efficiency and accuracy. For this example, it was just the one person served. So we've got their name, that they were the person served. We've got the date completed, and then it automatically pulled the scores from the previous screen. The numbers that are in blue are considered the more like problematic areas. The numbers that are in green are things that may be going well. As you know, when we're going over this with families, it's great for them to also see the areas that are working well, not just saying, here's where the problem area is. So use both when you're doing your processing with families. Here's an example of what it looks like when we have multiple family members who have completed the FAD at different intervals, and how it will do this really great FAD averaging tool. So it's going to let us see, at each of these administrations, how the family is doing overall. So no more calculators, no more having to figure this out on your own. You're able to just quickly go to this part of the tab, and it's going to tell you where the averages are, so you can quickly see what the highest rating is. So for example, for this family, if we looked at the initial, the primary area of family functioning is effective responsiveness. So that would be what's going to fuel our therapeutic theme, and that would be the targeted area of family functioning. There's also a tab that goes over the areas of family functioning, which is great to use with families to share the information and just for your own reference as you're going through the tool. Now, that completes the FAD portion. So then at any time, you can go to the tabs at the bottom and click assessments. That'll take you back to the home page. That's where you could select to go to one of the CPMs or to complete another FAD. So if you open one of the pediatric trauma screeners, again, it's very similar to the other one. You want to make sure all the fields at the top are filled out completely. And then after you go through the questionnaire itself, there's the sections for any referrals that are being made along with the recommended interventions. I want to point out that we do have a specific spot for that trauma evidence-based treatment where you can select FCT or other. So if at intake and any time during treatment, you're going to select FCT because they're in the trauma services, right, during that time. The only time you may select other is upon completion of treatment for the family, if you're then referring them to another trauma evidence-based treatment model at discharge. But for the purposes of clicking FCT, it's basically any time you're doing an initial FAD, or I'm sorry, an initial CPM, and any of those intermediate ones, you'll select FCT. That, once it's completed, will then unlock the CPM tracking. So for just one client, it'll show you how all the scores line up, and it does the sub-scoring for the different types of trauma screening. So if you really wanted to look at with the client what falls into line of being hypervigilance and intrusive symptoms, or what's coming up as more avoidance and like negative mood. So you're able to see how the ratings fall for the specific subcategories. When you're doing multiple administrations, here's how it'll look. And so again, you're able to track it to see, is there progress being made over the course of treatment? Are the numbers getting lower, which is what we're looking for? And it's also tracking, the actions taken and the recommended interventions. If you're wondering why it looks like we have the same headers at 3 different spots, this is so it makes it very user-friendly if you're going to print any of the documents. So it's already formatted to be in a printer-friendly mode where we're still keeping the headers on the pages. And again, at any time, you can go back to the assessments tab to re-administer the FADs, to re-administer the CPMs at those periodic times during treatment. So that's it. We hope you enjoy the new tool. Your assigned FCT Foundation Program Consultation Director will be meeting up with the trainers and supervisors at your organization to provide more in-depth training if needed and to help with the links to access the tool. We appreciate all you're doing for our FCT families, and we hope you enjoy it.